Defenders, Season 1, Episode 8, titled The Defenders. I like that title. Easy to remember, on point, very good. Now, this episode is the season finale, so spoilers really be warned on this one if you have not seen up to Episode 8. We've also reviewed the first 7 episodes up until this point. We're also going to be doing a Season 1 review to let you know exactly what we thought, even though we kind of made that point in this video, but we want to let you know a second time exactly what we really thought about this. So we're looking forward to that. Now, getting to this episode in particular, I personally wish there was more action. It was just a lot of talking and sitting around doing nothing, and nothing really happened. I'm kidding, obviously. There was a shitload of action, which I loved, and so many different things going on. But, you know, what I thought was really cool was a lot of the action, again, was very clear. A lot of the fight choreography, for the most part, was really in touch with what I wanted to see, especially with Iron Fist. I thought they did a really good job, especially this season, and in particular this episode, just really ranching up, like, what I wanted to see from Iron Fist from that fight choreography, personally, because he's supposed to be the best martial artist. So.
Yeah, I mean, it was great seeing him fight, and most of his scenes were clear, not too many quick cuts. I thought actually in this episode there were a decent amount of quick cut shots, which I didn't like as much, but it wasn't necessarily for Iron Fist. It was just, I think it was other fights throughout.
Well, there's also, I understand what you're saying, but there's so many characters that they're battling, so I kind of get what you're saying, but also from an artistic and visual cinematography side, I get why they had to, because there's so many different characters on screen at once.
I definitely thought Daredevil's fighting was top-notch in this episode, too.
His fighting's always top-notch.
Yeah, I love always seeing all the Daredevil fights.
He's my favorite character in
I think for me, by far, like, he's the best. That's why I love, too, when he actually is starting to take charge of the team, to be the one. He's, like, the only one with a costume, so it kind of makes sense, but I really like the fact that Daredevil is the one who stepped up to become the true leader of the team.
Well, yeah, and also, too, when they got to make that hard decision about blowing up the building, and now there's, again, that conflict is building up in the group where Luke is saying, no, I can't do this, and then Daredevil, like, really has to talk him into it, and then obviously Colleen and Jessica Jones and Claire Temple kind of persuade Luke as well, but I mean, it really starts with the leader, with Matt, and I like how you said it. He embraces that leadership role and really takes it on the right way. And also, what happens later in the episode, you can see how much it affects the group. Obviously, they would have been affected no matter who on the Defenders if that had happened to them. But because it's their leader, it just hits them all in a different way, and I like that, too. One of my favorite fights in this was Bakuto versus Colleen Wing. I thought that was, again, just resuming that fight that we got to see from the midway to end point of Season 1 of Iron Fist, where they got that fight in the rain where she ultimately killed him, and now, of course, he was resurrected. Again, I like just seeing that conflict within her, where you see he's playing mind games on her, he's trying to brainwash her in terms of, he's saying, like, I'll give you a second chance, like, you can still join me, you don't have to do this, like, and she's like, I don't need you. I like how she grows as a character, understanding.
Yeah, it gives her that moment.
Yeah, like, she does not need Bakuto anymore. She's her own woman, and she's got a family. She's got Danny. She's got a team to fight with, basically. So I like that, seeing that growth in the character.
Yeah, and I like her as a character, too, so I'm glad she got that kind of moment to just, overcome her kind of inner conflict. So I really like seeing that.
Definitely, and now, going into Elektra fighting the Defenders, I thought it was, like, again, cool action sequences. The fights were really clear and really cool. But my biggest issue with Elektra fighting the Defenders, I never felt that threat level. Like, again, we saw her beat the crap out of a few of them a few times here and there. I just truly never ever felt the threat level the way I wanted to, where I'm like, wow, she legitimately could kill them right now. Or in the way where, like again, I always use this example, but you watch a show like Earth's Mightiest Heroes, when you watch the episodes where Ultron is fighting against them, there's more episodes, they're going to move on, but in the moment, you really feel like, how are the Avengers supposed to beat Ultron here? There's no way they're going to beat him, and then when they end up beating him, it happens in such a satisfying way that you're like, that really was convincing, and that works. Like, the characters are so much more smarter for having gotten through this, and it just shows the level of gritness and toughness for them to get by this. And I just never felt the way I really personally wanted to feel threatened for the Defenders whenever they were fighting Elektra, and the way I personally wanted to feel threatened.
Yeah, I get what you mean. I definitely felt that sense too, where, I mean, you obviously know at the end of the show they're going to come out somewhat on top. I mean, not necessarily because, in this case, Matt dies at the very end, but, like,
Does he?
Yeah, exactly. But that's what they think. But yeah, I get what you mean. It wasn't that threatening. I mean, the fight scenes were great, but yeah, they definitely didn't hit that level of threatening level that, I mean, other shows have definitely hit before.
Yeah. Also, we got to talk, of course, about Elektra and Matt fighting. again, there's that, we use the word conflict a lot, but that's what it is, like in their relationship, because he's trying to talk sense into her and reason with her, and she's not the same Elektra anymore. She's obviously, during the fight, she starts once the defenders have kind of escaped, or basically they have escaped, we do see that she starts, like, you know, getting that her old memory back, rather that old Elektra back, where she cared so much for Matt. And obviously she's had moments where she could have easily killed Matt throughout the season, and she didn't, so there was always that goodness in her that Matt saw, and I love the way they played that off, where, you know, they're basically holding each other. Then it kind of felt like where they were kind of kissing, where everything was falling apart. Reminded me a little bit of Star Wars Rogue One, where they're kind of not kissing, but they're holding each other yeah. Right at the end when Scarif gets blown up. So kind of had that same kind of vibe to me, and I like the dramatic moment and tension we get from the other characters when they think that Matt Murdock has died. And I know some people got really annoyed by that, where like, why do they have to play in the storyline where the characters have to worry about if Matt died or not? But I think it makes it more compelling and dramatic. I thought it was interesting,
and it definitely felt sad, like when you see Karen and Foggy like waiting to see him come in.
Oh, that was
like,
a great
everyone
moment.
got to come in, but when he didn't, they're just standing there, and you definitely feel for them a lot, because you know how much they care about Matt, obviously, and definitely was a sad moment.
And not only that, you described that perfectly, but the way that Foggy, the way he feels guilt, because he's like, I delivered him his suit and I gave it to him, but again, because the situation was so dire, and I think Karen put it best, you can't talk Matt out of something when he's made up his mind.
Yeah.
I think that was a way of comforting him, in a way of saying, like, it's true, there's nothing you can do when Matt makes up his mind. So while Foggy in a sense thinks he did kill him, he did save the city by allowing Matt to do that. So
yeah.
You know, Foggy was a hero in his own right, even though he feels guilty in that he got his best friend killed. So
and I like seeing, I think he was talking with Luke Cage, him and Foggy, and Luke definitely says, I'm sorry about your loss, and to see that interaction with Foggy a little bit, see him a little bit vulnerable, and just kind of, you know, feeling for him a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. I also liked seeing, we got those hints of the Daughters of the Dragon with Misty Knight and with Colleen Wing. I really hope, again, we get another spin-off series where we get those two, because their chemistry, their interactions, I found it so interesting to the point where in my head many times I kept on saying, I'd love to see a spin-off show with these two. So I thought that was great how they were hinting at that. Obviously we get Misty, she gets her hand completely sliced off by Bakuto, and that kind of goes back to what happens in the comics with her, where she gets her hand cut off and she needs a robotic prosthetic arm to replace that, and Colleen Wing kind of gives her a hint at that, where she says Danny's got, you know, his own, lab or something like that.
Connection.
Yeah, so, and that's a very big hint to she's going to get a robotic prosthetic arm. So I thought that was really cool and really interesting as well, because she's got to replace that, and also it's interesting because that's what happened in the comics. So
I like that scene too with Luke and Jessica at the end, where they're in the bar and she's having a drink and he joins her. It's just them kind of tie off the stories a little bit for the end of the show, and just showing that, you know, those were two of the ones who were kind of on the fringe about even joining this team. So and they've also had a past relationship before, so it was good seeing them kind of tie that off a little bit, and they're obviously going to go have their own shows at this point. So
definitely. And what I loved about that scene too is you see how the consequences of what's happened to losing the leader and a friend in their group. And because, like you said, they weren't sure if they wanted to even be, I mean, they didn't want to be in this group.
Yeah.
So now seeing like how they're reacting to losing, you know, losing their friend and their leader, it really hits you emotionally. And again, it adds to that human depth and emotion that the show provided. So I thought it was a great scene. Me personally, just a little nitpick. I just would have liked if they said to Matt when they toasted, but it didn't ruin the scene in any way. I just thought it would have added a little more. But then we get that final scene where we see that, surprise, surprise, Matt is not really dead. Wow, I really thought he was.
At first I thought he was not dead when they showed Iron Fist up on the
I thought
building.
that was
I'm
Matt
like, is that
too.
Matt?
I thought that too.
I hope not. And then like, oh, it's freaking Danny.
I was hoping he had two glowing fists, but they didn't do that either. But no, I'm with you. I thought that was Matt Murdock too. But then getting into the scene we saw he's all bandaged up, he's being taken care of by nuns, and then as he finally starts to regain consciousness, one of the nuns says, he's finally awake, go get Sister Maggie. This is, of course, a comic book, or they're taking the storyline leading into Daredevil Season 3 from the storyline of in the comics, Daredevil Born Again. Now, what happens in that comic, I'm not going to go into everything that happens, but just the part that connects to this is what happens in there. By the way, Sister Maggie is actually Matt Murdock's mother, Margaret Murdock. She became a nun, and what happens in the Born Again comics is Matt Murdock is basically, he's trapped in a car, is thrown into the East River, he barely escapes, and he goes to the boxing gym where his father trained, and there his mother finds him, and now she's a nun working at the local church, and she has not seen him in decades, and she nurses him back to health. So it's obviously very similar to what is happening here, because they say go get Sister Maggie, and nurses are nursing him back, or nuns rather are nursing him back to health. So very similar tie into what happens with Born Again and Daredevil Born Again, and also that's going to lead us into Daredevil season 3, which is going to be an interesting storyline as well, because I mean, I don't know exactly yet who the villain is going to be. I want to see Bullseye in Daredevil season 3. That's me personally, but we'll see. But I thought that was interesting, infusing the mother, Margaret Murdoch. I know, I thought her name was going to be Martha too, but I guess not, right? But when we get to see Margaret Murdoch, I really hope they fill in some of that gap of where she was, while Matt was growing up. And obviously we know she became a nun, of course, but I just maybe what happened with her dad, with Matt Murdoch's father, and seeing that. But I thought that was really interesting exchange where we see that. It's not see, but we hear Sister Maggie, which is, of course, his mother, Margaret Murdoch.
So how do you think he got out of there? You think Elektra got him out?
Well, I mean, interesting to say. I mean, we know.
I mean, he's just in a hospital with nuns or in somewhere.
Well, yeah, I'm assuming Elektra pulled him out of there. She's definitely alive because, again, if you don't see a body, they're alive. And same thing with Madame Gao, because obviously we know Bakudo got sliced. Murakami, he got stabbed in the chest with a knife, or with a sword rather. So we know those two are most likely dead. But Madame Gao, we did not see die, so she's definitely alive. Elektra, we did not. And obviously we know that she can take a hit, because Jessica threw a car into her, and she was completely fine like a second later. So, from all that rubble falling, I'm assuming that helped Matt a little bit. She probably took some of that hit for him, and then, she probably, she wasn't willing to kill him at any point for the most part this season, so she probably brought him there, wherever that is. So.
Yeah. I guess we'll find out in later seasons. But anyways, overall, I thought the episode was good, and it was a good way to kind of close off the season, and just get us prepared for the next few seasons that are coming out on Netflix.
Yeah, I agree, and I believe the next show we're going to be looking to see on Marvel Netflix shows is going to be The Punisher, and I love John Bernthal. He was phenomenal in season 2. I also thought it was an interesting choice not having The Punisher come into this at all, because I don't know if there was a reason exactly story-wise for him to come in, so I thought that was...
It would have been too cluttered, I think.
Yeah, I think that was an interesting choice by Marvel Netflix not infusing The Punisher in this, because again, he's getting his own show in November, I believe it is. If I'm wrong, let me know in the comments section what an idiot I am. But I believe it is coming out in November, and I'm looking forward to all the Marvel Netflix shows, because for the most part, I love them all. But especially The Punisher, and I thought it was interesting they did.
Yeah, I love John Bernthal too, so I'm definitely looking forward to that one.
He's a piece of shit. Oh, dude, that way him and John Bernthal and Hugh Jackman, the way they cuss, man, they're on point when those guys cuss.
Alright guys, that's going to do it for this video. Let us know what you thought about it in the comments section, and if you like these videos, you can hit the subscribe button.
See you guys next time.